Good morning. You remember years ago now, we had a man named Mike Leonard come and speak to us. Loved Mike Leonard. He wrote a book entitled The Ride of Our Lives. And in the book he tells the story of how he took his mom and dad, who were in their 80s, as well as his children, some who were teens and in their 20s, and then they all piled on a bus, this big RV, and they went driving across the country for 2 months. They wanted to go back to all the old home spots where people had been born and where they'd grown up and where they had worked and gone to school, just kind of touch all the spots that affected his parents as well as his children now to see their past and their history. He called it The Ride of Our Lives. It was a great book. Insightful, poignant, humorous. Anyway, Mike Leonard was someone who'd been working for NBC, The Today Show. It was back in the 1980s that he got his start. He was a young man. And he was given the task of going and finding inspiring stories. And then he would do a 2 to 3 minute segment on these inspiring stories, and they would air on The Today Show. Instead of just having rotten news, you had something inspiring. And Mike was good at it. But in the earliest of days, when he was starting off, he was trying to kind of get going and build that following, and he wasn't getting any feedback. He didn't get any letters saying good. He didn't get letters saying bad. Zip. And in those days, remember, there was no email you could fire off to the network. You couldn't tweet to the network. No, you had to do something that was really old-fashioned. You had to handwrite a letter and mail it to the station. So when you did get that, you knew that someone really felt strongly about it. But he wasn't getting any. And now his confidence was beginning to tank. He was wondering, am I the right person for this job? I'm not connecting. And he was starting to move into a crisis of confidence. And then one day, the first letter came. It goes to the PR department first. They always make a copy, send a response, and then they send the letter up to you. And that way the brass knows, are you getting any letters? Well, his first one came. In case you're unaware of it, you have a young, attractive, intelligent, humorous threat to Andy Rooney. Whoa! Finally, he had a good letter. He knew that now his bosses would see that letter. It wasn't too long. He had a second letter. Came in. What a magnificent Christmas tree story by Mike Leonard. He'll be whimsical while weaving a story in a well-mannered, exquisite way. Yes, all right. This is what he was needing. It made him feel better. It wasn't too long until there was the third letter. It was about a group of women on an airplane. And they'd all gotten to talking, saying, have you seen this new guy on the Today Show? He is so good. Why aren't you giving him more airtime? Wow. Then a fourth letter came. This young man you have is doing so well. He really is inspiring us. We hope you pay him enough to keep him. You probably ought to give him a raise. Wow, this is really great. Mike was feeling better about it. Then more letters started coming and more letters. And finally he realized he was connecting with his audience. He was on a roll. But one Sunday afternoon, while he was at home, he got out those first 4 letters. He said, yes, I do keep them, and sometimes I get them out and read them. And those first 4 letters kind of gave him the confidence when he needed it until he finally started catching his stride. But as he was rereading those first 4 letters he received, once he was doing it all at the same time, he noticed something. He said, isn't it interesting that all of them seem to have underlined words and letters that are emphasized? He said, I thought of how when my mom wrote letters, she sometimes underlined things. He said, I had all 4 letters out before me, and I was looking at them. And as I looked at them, I realized the handwriting is fairly similar. And he said, since I had them all out before me, and I started really looking at them, well, it occurred to me here the names are Frances Sweeney, Agnes Daughtery, Constance Sullivan. He said those names went off in my head like a bell, a church bell. Those were all his mother's friends at church. And they were all dead. Yep, the gig was up. America didn't love Mike. His mother did. And that's all that it took to get him over the hump. As I've said in my sermons before, moms, we don't need you to be perfect. We just need you to love us. and we'll get by. Have a great day.